helps with a little bit of a level set on the types of questions. Do we have a slightly more technical audience that we should get a little bit more technical with? Or should we keep it a little bit more at the business level? Either way, hopefully it will be highly valuable. This is a topic that we think a lot about. Today, it's really exploring that question: how do you get more out of a platform like Salesforce that's got all of this built-in functionality, it's got the ability to build with AI without, spending more money, and what that might look like. Today, I've got myself, so I've been a Salesforce architect for many years, but I focus more on the strategy realm now. We've got David, who's a lead architect at Salesforce, and we're very lucky to have Dan Fowley. So welcome, Dave and Daniel, to the call. Dan Fowley's, I put him there as an AI architect. He's a man of many hats. He founded one of our kind of most successful kind of Salesforce partners in ANZ that worked up into the Americas, that sold out to Salesforce and was a senior director there working on some very interesting kind of client deals. And then he moved into doing his own AI consulting. The premise behind that was largely to help business users and board members to rapid prototype ideas to see how could you move things forward at pace. So how could you not go through a really long decisioning process, but get something in the hands of real users and go, does this make sense? And then based on a lot of that thinking on his journey, he's now the CEO of AirClerk, which is an agentic insurance tool, and he's implementing one of our top lessons in AI was don't let AI to solve all of your problems, but go very specific into one thing and get it to solve that problem very well. So thanks again, Dan.
Thanks for having me.
So quick agenda here. We'll talk about a little bit, very, very shortly on the context, a little bit kind of explaining the difference between different types of AI, but particularly looking at what is building an AI product versus building a product with AI. And then we're going to go through a number of examples of how to utilize it. But we really, really want your ideas. We want your questions. What are some things that you're thinking about? What confuses you about AI development, about Salesforce AI? Anything like that. Ask the questions. We might not be able to answer them all. We might not be able to answer them on this call. But we'll try our best to kind of guide you on how we would find those answers, especially some deep philosophical ones. All of these things are very welcome. The situation is no real surprise. We've got expectations, the pace of change is happening all the time, particularly for non-profits. 9 out of 10, a budget challenge, that's what's stopping us investing in tech. It's the same for commercial entities as well. We've got some very big commercial clients that don't have the budget to do the things they want to do from a CFO cash flow point of view. I would say the stat seems a little bit low, but 77% of non-profits expect to use AI. I expect that's higher. And then from Salesforce's stats, they say there's a 30% average productivity gain from AI-powered workflows. So there's a real opportunity here to go, how do we get more out of our budget? And we need to. And regardless of that, we need to adapt for the future that is now. There's a little bit of slide from our gravitylab, how we kind of think about AI a little bit. We've got a whole team of beautiful people. Look at Dave, he's a good example. We're using AI across kind of 3 big areas: product validation, how do we validate requirements, make sure we're building the right thing; development, how do we build the right thing right; building out code, integrations, etc. And then what is the context area? So how do we test and support these products with more context? Or what are really, really important is AI doesn't solve all your problems. You still need experts to do the translation from business needs into product strategy, identify your business needs, do prioritization. Architecture cannot be outsourced to AI yet, well, definitely not now. And a really, really important concept is humans will always bring the depth of wisdom and experience, and humans are accountable. You can't just give the output to AI and go, I see people do this. Go, well, AI wrote a report, that's why it's wrong. I'm like, no, it's your report, it's your code, it's your development, it's your email, it's your logic, your product. You can't outsource that. That's your job. A lot of words on this one, but I really want to differentiate between building AI or building with AI. So when we talk about building AI, which is not the focus of this kind of tutorial, it's about how do you build an AI chatbot or an AI phone service, or build a tool that summarizes your Teams or Slack channels or finds patterns. It's about using AI things. What we find is that pretty much all of our customers, most of the time, actually want to build a predictable model. So they want something that's going to send a receipt or a transactional email or charge a credit card or run a regression test, and it does it the same way every single time. If that's what you're looking for, that's a deterministic, that's building Salesforce, but we can use AI to build that quicker, sometimes better. Another way of looking at this is most of the time you want high precision in your output. So we charge a credit card or invite someone to an event, their email address must be accurate. You must charge the right amount on the right date. That precision level for most of our tasks is very, very high. And our input variability is low, so we know exactly what inputs we have. You're going to buy this SKU for this amount on this date. That's an automation. And most of our automations fit into this area of we're building out automation, and they're not actually AI. Lots of people think AI is. I'm not going to go through the other AI examples. So today we're really focused on how do you build these automations using AI. Kind of threw this slide in as an example because it's very interesting from Sesta last week. Anthropic was speaking on how they run their tech stack, particularly around their sales tech stack. Anthropic, the biggest AI company in the world by some metrics and produce a lot of great AI products. They have gone and bought the best in breed tools. And they said, there's no way we could just AI vibe code our own tools to replace all these different things. So AI is not replacing all of these different products. It's specific things it can do very well, not wide things. So even Anthropic is connecting Claude into their Slack and their Salesforce, etc., to get it to do cool stuff, but they're very specific. It doesn't do forecast planning very well, but it can interrogate and find Dan's mobile number or update Dan's mobile number, very specific things. We're not going to get into all of this, but I want to kind of start through, hit up lots of things. I do want to see, just a little reminder again, that I want to see people asking some things in the chat, because we're going to go through these fairly quickly so that so we can talk about your specific needs. And more people just coming in. So we've done the background of kind of AI and why AI and the difference between areas. Now, I want you to kind of visualize when you're bringing us your questions about what you want AI to do. Think about the end-to-end project lifecycle. So when you're ideating, you might be able to solve a business or a customer or process problem. How do you ideate them? How do you prioritize? How do you plan them into a project? How do you do discovery of what that looks like from a technology? How do you design out your architecture requirements, your fields, your non-functional requirements? How do you validate that? So that's a big part of a project, that AI can help with. It's not just writing code. Then you've got, how do you go through your typical development cycle? Very simply put, how do you design a feature, build a feature, review a feature, and then release a feature? It can help with all these different areas, from designing to building to reviewing to testing to releasing. How do you do your user and data migration? How do you improve adoption and help people use these tools in different ways? And then how do you self-optimize these into a future? So when you're thinking about areas that you want to use AI, please come to us. Please put some questions in there about these different parts of a project as prompts. This is how I personally use AI for writing up requirements and documents. As an example, it's not just hope that the AI gets it right. I guide the AI. So if I'm recording a meeting like this one, I can take the transcript out. I often use a tool called Crisp, or I use the Google or Zoom kind of things. I look at the meeting notes. In this case, it will be my slideshow, or I might be drawing some process diagrams, so I give it more context, and I might give it some other business documents, some metadata for the Salesforce org, or anything else I have to just give it more context. I might copy in the email from a client or a ticket. So I give it as much context as possible, so it does its least guessing as possible. And then my little hack here is I dictate. I'm a big fan of dictating. It's a short idea is I can talk much quicker than I can type, but I can read much quicker than I can listen. So that can sometimes boost my workflow by 30% just by quickly. What I do is I dictate and I say, look, I want these main points. I want it to do this. I'm the architect here describing exactly what I want. And then as soon as it gives me a response, I hit dictate again and I read out loud to myself, go, no, change that word, do this, do this, do this. As I read it once, I'm making it better, and then it outputs me a bunch of documents. So it's a nice little workflow you can kind of use for writing documents. Notice that human in the loop is I'm guiding it through the whole process. Dave, do you want to give us a little bit example of why we use prototyping and how AI prototypes work?
Yeah, it's I'm not a designer, and anyone who works with me knows. What I found recently is there are a lot of really high value tools like Claude Design, which is what you see here, or Vercel, the v0.dev, v0.app, I should say. They just let you design really good interfaces very quickly. This is an example of a Experience Cloud site we're working on at the moment. It doesn't look like Salesforce Experience Cloud, which is great. It's kind of what we were going for. We started as that as a basis. What we can do here is we can build a design using plain language, mark it up, get it signed off by the customer, and then we can take it directly into into Claude Code and turn it into Salesforce Experience Cloud. So this is the design. The final outcome is looking pretty close to this. It's almost pixel perfect. And the time to get that signed off was so much a lot smaller. Like building this design out didn't take long at all. Maybe took an hour. Getting it signed off by the customer, a couple of hours with some back and forth, and then getting into Salesforce is kind of where the fun starts. But we've got a really strong basis to work from. So I've been finding this prototyping process really good. One of my tips though is when you get it into if you're doing your technical and you're getting into Claude Code, the first thing I'd get to do is get Claude Code to build me an HTML version of it locally so that it knows exactly what it should look like. And we know that that translation from the design layer into the build layer
Mm,
has worked properly. So that's one little hint.
that's awesome. And
Just another little tip on that one, Dave. I don't know if you've tried this, but the image generator capability that particularly the new ChatGPT has is absolutely incredible. And yes, it'll just give you a static image, but sometimes that's all you need to visualize a concept and put it in front of a customer. So yeah, these tools are really helpful for that.
yeah, and one thing I'd kind of add in there that this is not about design. It is about design, but it's much more about requirements. So sometimes we ask it to do low fidelity ones with no colors. You go, is this your requirement? Are these the fields you want in the form? And they go, yes, but it's the wrong order, or that's supposed to be a slider, not a drop. And it's like, thank God we know that now before we built anything. So you're trying to get what's the smallest amount of investment, we're talking hours here, to get us to the point of alignment. The problem people do is they build the thing the right way, but they build the wrong thing. So we want to make sure that we're all very closely aligned on that one. So this is one of the things that GravitylAb has particularly doubled down on, and our team wants to do more and more of. It's probably the best, dictating, and then prototypes are really powerful. I've used prototypes, so that's a David examples. I've used it people buying Data 360 and going, hey, we want to do data enrichment. We want to see these fields across the different org. And they go, like this? It's going to look like this. And they go, no, I thought it was going to look different. And I was like, okay, well, you don't need the out of the box one, or that will work for you. This is how your portal is going to look. This is how your marketing journey might look. Very quickly visualize things, which is awesome. The other thing that we found in our own org is we have built new components that we wouldn't have built before. So it's not just that it helps us speed up. So the top one is a timesheet component. So we built that ourselves. We've got that in our own Salesforce org for timesheeting. We've made it much better with quicker improvements with AI. So it's very good at writing the SQL queries we might want or different things like this and bringing things in. But there's some cool things which are lower risk components, and risk is really important in AI development. We have like a champ of the week thing where people nominate in our give people high fives throughout the week, and it animates them and brings them onto the screen, and it does the API calls for us from a JavaScript base, and it looks beautiful. Then we have a little champ of the week wheel that people spin and they win prizes, and it automatically logs in Salesforce. That was made in hours, and it's fun and it's engaging, and it's designed for us to have a non-boring meeting with fun and engaging things. We were not going to sit down and figure out how to make a spinning wheel and how to animate these things by hand in the past. Like, it's just the ROI is not there. But this is low risk kind of areas that we can now build things, and we can build UX layers that we couldn't build before, which is really fun. I hand over to you again, Dave, for talking about converting those portals, those designs into kind of reality.
Yeah, this is the Kiwi Dreaming site. Hopefully, if you're a local Salesforce user, you're coming along to Kiwi Dreaming, please do. kiwidreaming.nz. This is the site we're building, or that I've built recently for this tool. Again, built with I think it was just built with Claude Design as a basis starting point. that if you go to the site, you'll see it's quite dynamic. There's lots of like flashing lights and stuff. Like it looks really cool when it's in motion. And that was all done in Claude Design and just imported and works almost out of the box. And then we use this is built on a tool called Store Connect, which is like a Salesforce plugin to give us a store/website web front end. And I just use this Claude Code and the Salesforce MCP server to do all the heavy lifting for me. I just said, make this site like this, and it just did it. Obviously, I reviewed it before I went in, but that was a starting point. Like it's the tools and the way that Salesforce has opened up its APIs and gives you access to MCP servers makes it really easy to access records because this site here is built on records. So I was able to just get my design tool to just tell Salesforce exactly what to put on each record to make the site look like this. So it was really easy to turn around a really good looking site, really functional site. And again, we use Claude Design at the front end to get it looking good before we started. So I was able to get the team who are helping me with this or who are working on this event with me. I was able to get them designs up front, so we didn't spend any time building anything we didn't need to build.
Lovely. And like we often find that people struggle with websites and website development from a budget point of view. No one likes spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on a website. And sometimes you don't, because if you're using Salesforce as the back end, you can hold secure information there and then you can deploy it in things. And the kind of last point in the bottom left of the screen there is we are seeing a bit of a trend in the future that we can develop these new sites and new UX components so quickly that they're actually trumping standard components out of the box quite a bit more. There is a question on this one, Dave. Is it Lightning Web Component Aura that's been used to build the portal for Kiwi Dreaming?
Kiwi Dreaming, that's actually pure, it's actually liquid because this Store Connect is a different interface. The Experience Cloud one is LWCs. We are only really using what's called the LWR Experience Clouds at the moment because they give us much more control over how things look. We found Aura is and Aura is really, really slow. That's the old Experience portal type of approach. It's just incredibly slow. So all our new sites have been built with LWRs, using all custom LWCs, unless there's some we can pull out of people's libraries that are pre-built.
Another example here, we were doing, this is actually a proof of concept, but we were working with a client that, they needed a new research object and it had multiple kind of things to it. And you could sit there and in kind of a very short prompt into Claude Code, you could be like, cool, I need an object that does this. Here's the bullet points of all the types of fields. And it goes through and it makes the formula field for you, the date field, so it does the predefined things. And then it goes, oh, you probably need a tab for that. And then you probably need a page layout for that. And then you probably need a permission set because certain users should do that. And it just deployed it all for me. And you go, oh, I don't need to click so many buttons. We used to have special tools to like mass create things. And then I kind of prompted, I want a path as well. And I went into another LLM and defined what the path was be, copy and paste, and it goes through all the setup. And that's kind of one of the really cool things about Salesforce. Sometimes we thought Salesforce is behemoth and then it's too much. But now we're getting the real benefit out of Salesforce that it's got a really configurable API backend. You can change the settings and data and flows and automations with AI code. So now it's becoming really quick to do some of these things, which is just... Don't click and write 20 fields. Never need to do that again. And it remembers some things, and you can ask it questions to go like, what's the quicker way of doing things? You can ask it as well. I'm jumping ahead to kind of context, but like, does this functionality already exist? It's not great at that, perfect at that, but it's better to ask it than duplicate. I'm going to go through, not going to go through this one in great depth, but test scenarios, every org Salesforce instance needs more testing. So based on that prototype that Dave might have for Kiwi Dreaming, he can go create me a list of test scenarios of all the different functionalities of that. And then you can go show me which ones a human can do and which one you might want to do back-end one. And then you go, it will think of edge cases for you, but you can ask it for edge cases around security and scale. And then you've got your whole test library there. And then you can get the ones that are automated. You go, generate these test classes. Very human in the loop though, because you don't want fake test classes that just pass scenarios. You want to go, it is actually testing what you want it to test. And then you can get it to generate you another side manual and document to give to a human tester to how they might test these things through. Some things it doesn't do so well is it forgets about reusability, and it will create brand new things in isolation each time. So you do need to give it a bit of guidance around how you want your test classes to work and how you want your code to work. You can't just make all your individual code. So you do need architecture there to think about reusability of components and test factories and trigger structures and stuff. But that's a little bit more technical. What we have done as well with code review for us as well, we've got a gravitylab master prompt that talks about our security and performance standards, and we get it to run it over our core code and our orgs and be like, did we miss anything? Is there anything that doesn't meet our standards? Anything that's not composable or not scalable, etc.? It's not always right. It's 100% not always right, but sometimes it catches something and you can rename something here or there. Another really time saver with AI, I really like this one. There's a few different tools out there, Scribe or Loom. We use Loom a little bit more. You can record through your as you make training documentation, and that will generate you standard operating procedures, will generate you training manuals. If it's got your prototype and your requirements and your testing things, and these have all been validated as you go through, and you add a video to it, you've got a lot of context to create your training guides for people. And that context can also be used in an advanced masterclass of actually using a context store so that people can start asking questions about your instance that will help with support and safe speed without needing to spend so much on responding to support tickets, something we're looking into in quite a lot of detail. You can use AI, like I said, to document your org. Most people end up not having a well-documented org. How do you keep that live? For us, it's discipline process that as you develop components, you're asking it to update your documentation or doing pull requests or push requests back to where documentation might need more. That's the goal. We've got some great examples of things that would have taken us days to manipulate data, and then AI will write you like a Python script or something. It will find areas where it's most likely to be right or wrong. It can fix up special characters and some things that we didn't have to do so much thinking. We knew what the input was and we knew what the output was. As long as those matched, we were happy with the result. Saving hours. Data tidy up is a hard one, but try it out. And this is one of Dan Fowley's examples he gave me when we were prepping for this one about now with a few different tools. You can use some of ChatGPT and Claude Cowork, etc., to control your screen. So I tried it out on one of my Salesforce cert maintenance. Probably shouldn't do that. But what it had on the screen was very specific instructions by how to set up a new filtered list view. And I just copied in those instructions and said, do it. It opened up the org from the thing. It opened up the right setting. It went through and it tested them all, and it got to the end point and kind of did it all for you. And it just shows you kind of the power that things that maybe aren't API driven, you could do it, but you can watch it do it on the screen. This one is very heavy on the compute because it's taking screenshots, so it does cost a lot. But if you don't know what to do or don't know how to find things, it's very good. Salesforce have their own tool around this one. They've got Salesforce Vibes. It's the more technical side. We think it's good at asking questions. It's not that great at writing code. We're not using it for writing code. It will get better, be more specific, but our top tip there is what we did was we took the MD files from Salesforce Vibes that told us how to write good Apex code and Lightning Web codes, and we copied that into our libraries and our skills for Claude Code. So we took the Salesforce specific things and just copied them out. It's got its place. This is a brand new tool. We only just tried out last week, but they're set up with Agentforce now. So within the setup menu, you can ask it to create new fields and do things. It's new. It didn't really meet it did the basic stuff in the first round. So we used it to create a new field and add it to a permission set. It could do that. It struggled to make a formula field or make a report or to do more difficult questions like summarize unique login attempts. But you can see how it's getting there. I think this is good if you don't have a clue where to go. If you don't have a clue where to go, then maybe ask for some help as well because of risks, and definitely test in the sandbox. But you can see it's not just writing code. The software is going to self-set up. If it can do the boring stuff, bring it on. That's fantastic. Um, I want to talk through a little bit and open this up for some people to talk back at us, because I'm talking a lot here. One of the things with any part of a digital transformation project is adoption. It's a big problem. And some of the key problems, the CRM feels like admin work, so people don't use it. People can't find the information they want. Where the heck do I look that? Processes is inconsistent. People forget their training, the next day. It's not actually aligned to their real workflow, the scary one that we see quite often. Data can be messy. There can be, more bugs or issues than the start of the implementation, and people just don't ever use it again. Or dashboards aren't useful. I'm going to invite the audience, and Dan and Dave, you're welcome. But what do you think are the problems of adoption, and how do you think some tools or maybe AI tools might be able to speed that up? Go ahead and unmute yourself if you want, but do you have any ideas on this one, Dan?
Look, this one is, you've touched on a few of them. It's almost the things outside the system. So the training materials you mentioned, all those supporting adoption related things, the training guides and all of that can be a big leg up, because those are the things at the end of the project that you're slammed on time to get done before a go live. So I would look at any of the non-technical supporting artifacts that AI can help.
Yeah, I think it's a good point there that we look at AI for technical stuff, but it's the non-technical stuff that often makes the project go well. And if you do what Dave was talking about, doing good prototypes and requirements, then adoption is less of a problem as well. So the whole process leads to good adoption. There are some cool things you can do, but making sure users want to use it and know how to use it, and making the UX really clear. And we're in a world now where you can make custom components and make custom workflows that really make sense to users. So adoption becomes easy.
I think one of the things that I've noticed, my ADHD brain hates writing documentation, just hates it. Just I physically can't do it. But one of it makes it way more interesting for me. So what I'll do now is when I've built a component or I've done something new and I want to document it, I'll just open up a notepad and I have a dictation tool that I use, and I just talk at it. I'll just, stream of consciousness for 10 minutes, tell it everything I've done, just walk through the process, and then I'll just take that transcription and get it to turn it into a document. And the tools are really, really good at that. Even if, they're not perfect, at least it's just maybe 5 minutes of me editing, tweaking the document, rather than trying to start from scratch and write it all out, which is, again, I find physically difficult to do that. So taking those, you can build up assets very quickly that you can drop into an LLM and get it to put out a really good result that you might not even think be useful. Like, again, just talking to it and giving it a basic rundown, it can turn into a really strong document out the back of it. So I'd highly recommend, if you struggle like me to build documentation, try something like that. Just try talking into your computer, dropping it into Claude or something like that, and getting a training document out the back of that.
Save a lot of time. I'm going to do this one and come back to your question there, Sandra. One of the things is some of us have tried doing things before and it wrote garbage code and made a rubbish document. I would just encourage you that things are changing very rapidly. So if it didn't work last year, give it another go. I've got a few prompts that I try in every single model every 6 months to like see how things are progressing. It might work. Also, it's probably failing because one of the most common reasons failing is you're not being really specific on what you want. It's like a human. If I go to somebody and I go, do X, they might do what I want. If I give them really clear outputs instructions, they're much more likely to get what I want. And the other thing is, it's not going to go set up Salesforce for you or deliver your project. It doesn't do big nebulous things. What are the small little things you can do within a project? So if you're struggling a little bit, find those little areas that it can go down. Just want to answer a couple of questions on there. So Sandra, you said for data cleaning, was it done in Salesforce? It was done outside of Salesforce. It used Claude to write a Python script, and that tied up. It's actually a pattern that we've seen in the last year that LMMs have implemented themselves, but are much better at. AI is fuzzy. It's statistical models. They don't always give accurate answers, but if the LLM and Claude writes a script, the script will always work the same way. It will always work the same way. So for big data cleaning, you could go through and test all the logic. So that was Claude wrote us a script, run locally, and went through all the data.
And
Also, going to come to a little point there of like, you want to be a little bit careful about what data you're putting into LLMs at time as well. I don't know if you were going to say that, Dave.
I was going to say that we didn't want to just give all our customer data into an LLM. That's not how we want to work. We want to tell it what the changes we want to make. We might give it some test data and a dummy data in the same shape, like in the same columns in an Excel document, and just say, these are the changes we want to make to it, and then work from there. We don't want to just upload all of our stuff into the cloud. That's not a good approach. Like there's obviously very high security implications on that.
Yeah. Stephen, you asked if we can send the recording out. Just send us an email if we don't do that. I don't think everybody wants it, so just get in contact. I'll email you afterwards. We've got another question there. AI is often used as a capability multiplier, especially when there's a technical gap in knowledge. What guardrails are you putting in place for users to validate AI outputs? Oh, I love that question. Do you want to have a go at that one, Dan?
Yeah, I've got a bit of an interesting take on this one. So, and you mentioned this in one of your earlier slides, Daniel, about using AI to deliver things that wouldn't have had the return on investment previously. So it's not just speed, but I've had examples, and particularly in the last major Salesforce related project I did 12 months ago, where I was actually able to do things that I personally wouldn't have been capable of. It was beyond my skill level to write certain types of LWC and other things, which is great. So that enabled me to deliver better results for the project I was working on. But now I'm in this unknown territory, as the question kind of alludes to. How do I know what good looks like for a capability that's beyond something I'm super familiar with? So I tend to use this, and I'm borrowing the term here, LLM council approach, where I'll actually work with multiple different AI systems to play off each other and review each other's work. So I feel like it's not foolproof, but I feel like it gives me, and it often catches issues that one AI that's been trained on a particular data set that is different to another AI, and they are able to kind of pick on each other's work and find bugs and find even small architectural issues that say no, you're gonna this isn't going to scale. It's working now in a sandbox when you're playing with 10 records. It's not going to work when you're in production with 10,000 records. So things like that, I find using multiple AI tools to review what you're doing can give you a higher, not perfect, but a higher chance of success.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit on the next slide as well. But it's really important that you do understand what it is for. And Dan kind of mentioned it around there's different levels of risk here as well. If it's a UX component that just needs to display some internal data in a slightly different way, it's lower risk. If it's integrating with your finance system and looking at things, then it needs to be fully human vetted. The trick is to get AI to vet and humans to vet, because AI will read every single bit of code, while a human might not as well. So the AI can find things that humans miss. And that's what we're finding around the world if you look into security things a lot. Great question. James, you got in there, key elements you've seen around adoption of agents is trust. 100%. Trust is to try it the first time, and it's a huge motivator for first step users to know what the agent can't do and how to triage failure. It's really powerful. We love the idea of iterative development and different things, but you do have limited trust with users, and it's not just limited to the adoption of agents. They log in and go, I like it or don't like it. That's making sure you know what their problem is and you solve their problem. You do pilots, you do good training, you do rapid prototypes to validate what their requirements are. And it's really important with agents. I think you're bang on the money there to be very narrow in the scope of what the agent does, and then be clear about what it does do. And when I've advised clients around general agents like a sales bot that will do all my sales, it's like, no, it won't. It won't do it all. And that's 100 different tasks. Humans are good at that. AI is not yet. it can ask product questions or very specific things. I won't get into Salesforce's rollout of that feature yet. Irene, thanks for your question. How would you go about updating documentation that's been around for a while? I have a manual, but how do I get AI to check what is still correct and what isn't? Feel free to take yourself to ask more questions. Take yourself off mute if we don't answer this well, Irene. But any ideas on that one, Dave?
Yeah, so we had a customer who was offboarding, which doesn't happen often with gravitylab, but customer was offboarding and they had, let's say, 4 years of history in our Asana board. We'd kept Google Docs up to date. We've kind of moved away from Google Docs into Notion, which is another management tool. But what we did is I hooked up Claude Cowork into our Asana board and into our Notion page and into our Google Docs, and I was able to say, go and look at all the Asana tickets we've delivered over the last 4 years. And I want you to write up an as-built, built and based on all of that and based on the dates we delivered things and, figure out what the latest thing in the platform is and turn that and take all the existing Google Docs and turn them into a set of Notion pages that I can then deliver as a set of PDFs to the customer. So it was able to just go and log into the tools and get out the data and turn them into usable working documentation that we then checked and passed over to the customer, and they were pretty happy with that. So I think it depends where your documentation lives right now. So you might have it in a place that's accessible via AI tools, like in Google Docs is one that they can usually access. And then if you've granted it access to those documents, remember not to give it every single thing in your Google Drive, but you might want to give it certain things. Then it can go and extract the ones you've asked for, read them, smush them together to the right shape, and then pass them back out as a final documentation. And you might have Jira. You can do the same thing. You can go read the Jira documents and build up as built out of that. So again, all of these tools and these ticketing tools in Google Docs, they're all like really good fonts of information. And as long as you can get your AI access to them, it can read them. Worst case scenario, you can just copy paste them. You can just go and get the text, copy paste it into your AI window, and then get it to build a better documentation out of that. It's just when it's all over the place, like it was for us with this customer, it made more sense to hook the tools into the actual applications themselves. And that was really easy to do with, like I said, I use Claude quite extensively. Claude Cowork was really good for that.
Any other ideas, Dan? No stress either way.
Yeah, I would just say, building on what they've just said, it's definitely possible if you can give it the right context. What you'll tend to find if you've got extensive documentation in particular is it's not like a one-shot prompt that's like, hey, review my documentation, review this, and I'll come back in half an hour and you'll have figured it all out. So you kind of need to prompt and you need to use a tool more like a Claude Cowork or a Claude Code, where you can basically tell it to do a loop. And so maybe your documentation is broken up into different functional areas or different ways to make the problem smaller, and then tell the tool to actually, hey, loop over this. You've got context to all the metadata here. Look at the training documentation section by section and review it in that manner, and possibly even using, they have the notion of sub-agents. Because what you don't want to do is you're reviewing some training material on one part of the app, and you don't want to pollute the whole context of what you're doing with everything to do with that when you're reviewing a completely different section over here. So you can actually break the problem into smaller problems and then ask Claude to kick off sub-agents to review each of them independently and then just report the results back up to the parent agent.
Hopefully that's useful, Irene. If you do have questions, feel free to thank you to just email us as well. I'm sure we can point you to what some of those tools are. The other one probably might add to that one, a really simple one, is if you can get a copy of your Salesforce metadata and you have your documentation, at least asking it what's missing or what's wrong about my documentation is a nice place to start to see, because at least you'd want all of your documentation to be correct.
Actually, that's a really good point. Sorry to jump in there, Dan, is unfortunately one of the challenges with the LLM models at the moment is they tend to be very agreeable. So if you put a sort of a thesis forward, they'll tend to come back and agree with you and tell you how clever you are and things like this. I know it's something both major model companies are working on. So what we've found in some of the applications we're doing is to very specifically ask for critique and tell me where I'm wrong as a prompt is a really good way of kind of finding out where the blind spots are. But you have to be quite explicit about that when you ask for the output.
Totally agree with that one. There's a few watch out for AI devs, for AI development. I'm not going to go through all of these, but you really want to be clear about the goal and what the scope is. Sometimes it will put requirements in you haven't asked for. Sometimes a feature requirement might quietly disappear if you just did it in a simple fashion. So you really want to make sure that you've got a requirements document that it's referring back to, that's in a loop, that's checking that it's building what you said it was. Sometimes when you remove something, it doesn't fully remove everything, like a very lazy developer. So also from a quality point of view, it will do what it thinks best based on probabilistic models. You want it to make sure it's coming back to best practice. That's why we have our own skills document. That's why we had our own one, and then we stole the one from Salesforce Vibes about this is how you generate good Apex code to make sure it follows all of those patterns. You do need to give it advice around structure. I've noticed on some of the stuff that I've built with it that when it goes really quickly, it might have some logical flaws. When it's excluding everybody not working today, and it's like, no, I meant include everybody who is working, and they sound the same, but the reality is slightly different, and it doesn't come up on your tests. But sometimes when you slow down and write your requirements, you want it to do it the right way, and it's not the LLM's fault. You didn't give enough guidance. Probably the other one we see is that it does hide failures sometimes, which is a problem. It'll find an error and then just like comment that error out or put things in what's called a try catch, to make the error go away. We like errors. We want the errors to come through so we can deal with them properly. But at a really big level, I'm adamant that AI is not a good architect yet. It can find some things. It can do some architectural review to go, have I missed anything? Critique this, show me where I'm not following best security practices or best scalable practices. But it doesn't know what you're trying to achieve. It doesn't have experience to match everything up. So requirement validation is still very key. Security and sharing, we've touched on that one, is very key. You don't give AI access to everything and chuck it in there. And the last one is, we were just having a little chat before this call, consumption costs are increasing. So Dave, you were saying about how it's increasing for us. Do you want to share that?
If you want me to. In what month is it? So in April, we used about $700 worth of API credits. We use a credit. We use API credits rather than subscription plans because giving everyone on the team a $100 plan that they wouldn't use is kind of a bit of a waste of money. So we spent about $750 in April. In May, it went up to about $2,500. That's the limit we set. So we set a limit so we don't blast through $1 million like some people have done. But in June this month, we've reached about $2,000 so far this month because the team is starting to really accelerate how much they use Claude Code. And it's starting to make us really think about how, like, the approach we take to tokens, the approach we take to models, like how we attribute costs, to projects. There's a lot of questions that are starting to come up because those costs are suddenly dramatically increasing. Number one, that's because our team are accelerating on how they use this. We're working over the last year to try and get them using this more and more, but now we've got the projects that kind of require this sort of work, which is great. But number two, the price is increasing. Like the AI companies are changing how their pricing models work. We're seeing a bit of price shock, and that's kind of the biggest thing at the moment. I find is like, yeah, we're getting a lot of AI usage, like people finding these tools really good. But what happens when it suddenly costs a lot more money to run them? Like you have a tool that might cost you $2,000 a month to run. Is that something you still want to use? So there's definitely questions like that, and there's approaches you can take. You can go to all you can eat models, change up how you're consuming those credits. But those are definitely things that are in the front of my mind and Dan's, I think, as well. Like, how do we manage this effectively? What's the best use of our money, and what's the best outcome we can get for it? How do we actually track that value? How do we track that all those tokens we're spending giving us value back?
There's definitely a trend there that AI costs are increasing a lot. There's been a lot of fanfare around AI is going to reduce all your dollars, which is good, and it can do, and hopefully these are some practical examples on how to do so. But it is getting more expensive. And then you shared an example before, Dan, that not everybody will know.
Yeah, there were just well, there's been two kind of well publicized examples in the last couple of weeks on this cost getting out of control. So one was Microsoft has supposedly cancelled Claude Code subscriptions internally because the cost was getting so high. Um, and what I didn't realize was 'cause I thought, well, surely they're all on, $200 max subscriptions, but no, apparently really large enterprises aren't allowed to go. They have to go on the API model. So that's where they're seeing those costs increase. And then there was another example, and again, hard to validate how true this was, of a very large company, and the rumored company involved is a multi-trillion dollar company. But they supposedly blew through like $500 million worth of Claude credits last month, which has forced another rethink. So, yeah, these things
Okay.
put there is actually in the back end of Claude there is like a API hard stop limit that you can put in. So I would encourage anyone using the API to make sure they've got a comfortable budget set.
Yeah, it's just something to be mindful of, and particularly the future patterns going that way. How do you optimize for it? Um, just to kind of recap of some things, and then we want to hear more questions for yourselves. But some of the key lessons is like, and we watch people get confused with, are you building AI or are you building with AI? So like people go, I want AI, this for this, and half of it's not AI, it's an automation. Other thing I want you to remember is AI is very smart, but it's like a smart keyboard. It needs oversight. It's as good as the inputs you put into it and your ability to validate the outputs. And that's your real job. It's a black hole in the middle to make sure it knows and you're very clear about what you want from it. Otherwise, you might get something else. Might be better, might be worse, risk. But your ability to really validate the outputs. And largely keep try different things. But be mindful of quality. Don't try in safe ways. Don't try on finance integrations or deploying things into prod that you don't understand the work. And like think about cost as well. Oh, another question. And please, this is time for your final questions. Are you finding AI speeding up technical learning and development or acting as a crutch instead of learning and development? Be a good one for you, Dan.
This is an interesting, more philosophical one because I actually think this comes down to mindset of whether you're a growth mindset kind of person or not. Because yeah, for me, I find it a fantastic learning companion to help me not just do something, as I said before, do something that's sort of beyond what I was capable of on my own, but also help educate me to as to why things are done that way or what can it teach me along that journey. So it is truly that kind of amplifier. I think if you're using it as the crutch to do something that you just need to get done, that's probably an example of a task that wasn't super high value anyway, hopefully. And if that then gives you more time to get your fulfillment out of other tasks, then that's a good thing. But yeah, just being blindly prompting and getting things done without anything either learning or fulfillment out of the task is probably going to be something that'll be the tasks that'll be completely automated away, hopefully not providing any value on any side of it. But yeah, I think just take a growth mindset approach to it and you should be okay.
Yeah, I would add to that. It's like spend more time thinking about the implications and the requirements than the code. So I think of the integration, like thinking about how do you monitor that, how do you scale, how do you keep it secure, get LLMs to ask difficult questions. But I don't spend time doing field mappings and mapping between integers and doubles and all these different things and null exceptions. Like it automates that stuff that we could do a lot of it, but I don't need to learn it. That's the information age in some ways. Dave, any thoughts on this?
Um,
Is AI making you dumber? I think
AI is
that's
definitely
the
making me
question.
dumber in some ways. It's not making me, I'm going to say, AI is making me lazier, but at the same time, I've never been busier. And like, again, my ADHD brain means I have five things running at once and is actually negatively affecting me because I've got too much going on. So my problem is less about the learning thing and more about trying to balance my workload so I don't try and do too much at the same time and do a bad job of all of it. So my feedback is like I am struggling. I'm trying to do less with AI, like do less AI, but do more well. That's kind of where I'm at right now. Because again, like I think we've all kind of done it. Like, oh, cool. All of the stuff that I couldn't do before, I can now do. There's all these things I wanted to do, and I'm going to do them all at the same time. That's not necessarily a healthy place to be. Like I struggled sleeping at some points when I was like really kicking off on all these agents and stuff. And actually, when they finally got good enough for me to build what I need to build, so I've had to take myself back a bit and say, no, just do one thing at a time. Just focus on this and do a good job of it. You don't have to do everything. AI was supposed to like save us all this work, and it's kind of made more work. I don't think anyone's less busy because of AI. That's the thing I found really interesting. It's this productivity thing, right? We're supposed to gain productivity. That should mean we do more, but suddenly we're doing a lot more, but we're not having more time in our day. I just find that really weird.
And I think that's probably a good segue to like our jobs are changing, so you've got to have that growth and move into the change. We are now to manage the code generation agents more than generate the code. You'll see that a lot in cursor free. You've got more agentic kind of development shops. Google's Anti-Gravity is a really cool kind of code development shop. Dave and I talked about this concept, like, and then it came out, and he just slacked me, going, "Look at this! They built the thing we wanted." But you're managing. There's an agent bot, a development bot, a testing bot, and they're kind of working in parallel. That's the future of development. So I like old school development, but I also like let's learn about the new stuff as well. So we're learning a lot in different ways.
Yeah, just and one kind of random side thought on this one is don't let asking the AI for help destroy kind of the social bonds that you've got. So I was thinking the other day about how, often you'd have this challenge and you'd think about whether it's a work setting, you'd think about someone on your team or just in your personal life, you're like, oh, my friend so-and-so, they know the answer to this, question I've got. And so that was a reason to reach out and actually have a friendship and talk to a real person. And now it's like, oh, I can get the answer to anything just instantly on my phone or computer, and that you don't necessarily reach out to that friend or that coworker for something. And so we're probably, if we become over reliant, going to miss out on many valuable social interactions that we used to have.
Yeah. Productivity is not AI has been more philosophical, been wired towards productivity and capitalism, but that's not the goal of being a human. So it's just been used in weird ways. That one. So the open for any other questions, but we have a whole series that we're going to do around kind of a learning series here to just help you understand what's happening. The next one we've been asked to do is actually speaking at Kiwi Dreaming, so how to win board support for your digital project. So we'll bring in a couple of board members. We're going to go through how does a board member think from a customer empathy mapping point of view, because we're often jumping to the conclusions and haven't taken them through a process to get to there. So there's some real quick wins on how to win your board over there. We'll talk about risks, and like the risk is probably less around product selection or development pathways. Their risk is your ability to implement it. So they're, how do we deal with that and the things that they're not telling you? So I think that's going to be really good, and we can follow up with an online one. I'm going to send through an email after this with a bit of a survey to let us know, but the big thing on the survey is what topics would you like? What would you like to learn about? But if you've got any final questions, let us know. If not,